Good morning and welcome to Backyard and Beyond. Well, if you don't have any stoneware for baking in your kitchen, you probably can live without it, but maybe you would want to try it out. I've had a piece in my kitchen for a while, don't use it for very much, but started doing some different bread baking, and stoneware was at the top of the list for the thing to use. And of course it can be used for other kinds of baking goods, but not for cooking on top of the stove. Well, a couple things about stoneware that I found out as I was doing some investigation. We'll go back in history, and again it's the Chinese. The ancient Chinese were the first to transform clay into durable stone-like material by firing it, reaching temperatures of up to 2,000 Fahrenheit. And the resulting material is what we currently refer to as stoneware. And since ancient times, stoneware has been highly regarded as a fantastic material for baking foods. It gradually develops a durable nonstick surface, and with proper care, it will outlast all other finishes. You could pass your seasoned stoneware on to your children and grandchildren, and if it's properly taken care of, it will just get better and better. Stoneware heats evenly and retains warmth for an extended period of time, and that's mostly a plus, but could be a minus depending on what you're baking in there. And for hundreds of years, cooks have relied on stoneware for preparing and baking foods. And think about the ovens mostly we see pictures of in, for instance, Italy, where they're doing the pizza. That's basically they're baking pizza on stoneware, but they don't have a separate piece of stoneware. It's right there in the oven. As I mentioned, although it's very durable, it does require seasoning before the first use and occasionally thereafter until it forms its own resilient nonstick finish. It, of course, requires proper care in order to last. And when correctly cleaned and cared for, it can provide you with a lifetime of use, and as I said, pass it on to future generations with best wishes for lots of great cooking. So before the first use, if you get a new piece of stoneware, of course, you need to wash it just by running water over it. Do not put soap on it. Do not soak it. Just rinse it under warm running water and dry it thoroughly. And then, before baking on it for the very first time, you'll need to lightly spray it or cover it with a cooking spray or an oil. And then choose a higher fat food such as cookie dough or frozen potatoes to use it at first. As the oils from the food, this is the key to the stoneware lasting a long time and forming its nonstick surface. As the oils form from the food, soak into the stoneware, it fixes that nonstick surface. And eventually, lower fat foods won't stick. You won't have to put anything on it. It will be a nonstick surface. After you have used it, again, run it through hot water to wash it off and dry it, but do not put soap on it. If you do, probably the next time you use it, your food will taste like soap. So don't do that. Just run the water over it, dry it right away, and that non-stick coating that it's forming will still be there. It will become darker and darker. You may think it doesn't look as nice as that nice clean stoneware when you got it, but that's the way it should look. It should keep getting darker and darker. We mentioned never soak it in water, never use soap on it, and just if there's something left on it, after you've baked it and something a little bit has stuck, just scrape it off and then run it under the hot water and dry it. If you need to do a little more scraping, you could use a non-abrasive scrub sponge, but usually you won't have to do that. Now, what about some other things that you need to do to take care of it? It does take a little more care than some of the other bakeware that you have in your kitchen, but again, you have to think about the pluses. Thermal shock caused by excessive or sudden temperature changes is one of the leading causes of breakage. Sometimes people are really surprised when they see that their stoneware has cracks and breaks. and that could be caused by that sudden change in temperature. Never place hot stone water in cool water. Again, that's that temperature change. And never attempt to bake frozen foods that are solid. Now, there are some items like frozen pizza that will work fine, some other items, but not a solidly frozen dense, such as a piece of frozen meat. Should be thawed in advance. Again, think about that temperature change. In addition, never preheat stoneware before topping it with frozen foods. Now, often in a recipe, preheating is a part of the sort of magic of stoneware, especially when baking bread and some of those kinds of things. So don't preheat it when you are going to put frozen foods on it. Preheat the oven according to the directions. Place the frozen item on the stoneware in advance and before you put it in the oven. And it will require time to absorb the heat, so you'll have to add a few more cooking minutes to the time that you usually use to get that frozen food baked appropriately. And perhaps the easiest thing to do, if you have time, of course, is to pre-thaw those frozen foods if that is appropriate for the food. If you own a convection oven, just use the usual instructions. Occasionally, with a convection oven, the tops of foods may get a little browner, and of course you can just put a piece of aluminum foil over the top to just loosely to prevent it from getting too brown. Now remember, we've talked about stoneware is for oven use. It can't tolerate a direct flame or the intense heat of a broiler, but it can be used in a microwave oven. But keep in mind that foods won't brown, of course, in the microwave oven like they would in a conventional or convection oven. And then proper storage, of course, is going to help keep it in good shape after you have it cleaned up. One of the things you might want to do is just store it on the oven rack. However, I would forget that it's there and heat up the oven with it in there. It's not going to hurt the stoneware, but if you want to use that shelf and you have to take the stoneware out, maybe not a good idea. So it depends on your good memory and how often you're going to use the stoneware, I guess, whether that's a good way to store it. But the reason it's good is because you are storing it flat. If you don't want to do that, it of course needs to be in a sturdy storage cabinet, and never stack heavy items on top of it. Never place heavy items on it and try to pick it up using the stoneware, because you could break it. And of course, after you spend a little time getting it all seasoned, getting it used so that it's really become a non-stick surface, the last thing you want to do is to break that piece of stoneware. Stoneware is available from a variety of sources. You might check anywhere that sells cookware, and there are different sizes, there are different shapes. You get perfectly flat. That's my preference because you can bake almost anything on it, but there are all kinds of shapes and sizes, casseroles, so on, for stoneware. So if that's something you want to think about adding in your kitchen. If you really love baking bread and you don't have a piece of stoneware, that would be a great addition to your Christmas list. Are you thinking about Christmas list yet? And something other than stoneware, just a couple of comments, because I've been trying these new bread recipes, and one of the things that it mentions is creating steam in your oven. And the reason for this is to keep the bread crust a little soft while it's rising, so you don't get cracks in it, and then eventually, though, you have a really nice crispy crust with a nice, almost creamy inside. So it is kind of a fun thing to do as well as a yummy thing to do. People have lived without it, but if it's something that you like to bake and you want to try a new adventure, that would be a good thing to do. Mentioning getting steam in your oven, there are a number of ways to do that. Perhaps the safest way is to use a spray bottle filled with cold water to spritz the inside of an oven after it's hot and before you start baking, so that it immediately forms steam. The other thing you can do is to put a heavy-duty metal pan in the bottom portion of the oven, let it preheat, and then pour in cold water or ice cubes and it will immediately create steam. Of course, you want to shut the oven door really fast, keep that steam in there to keep that what you're trying to accomplish done. So maybe in the future here, as I've experimented with this new bread recipe I'm using that I'm really excited about, we will share that maybe before Christmas. So you could bake loaves of bread for Christmas gifts, or just bake them so you can have yummy homemade bread any time. Well, until next time, here's the thought. In the pot of life, if you want to keep cooking, you have to keep stirring.